everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show podcast, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here. I'm joined by Leo Vader.
Thank you.
Leo, last time you were on the show, it was in San Francisco, in a hallway at GDC. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, dude. We got Sarah Pazorski.
Hello.
You seem to be shaking your head aggressively already, Sarah.
I'm just so excited. Ben. I'm so excited to talk about what I think the best games are.
Hell yeah. And to do that, we're going to be joined by contributor Jacob Geller.
Video games have come a long way since Pac-Man, Ben Hansen.
That's a great point. We're going to talk about all of that in a big way. On this episode of the podcast, not only is the back half of the show some wonderful community questions. I think we broke a record for maybe the most community questions submitted this week. Mind-boggling. We'll get to them. There's some great ones over there that were submitted over on Patreon. Thank you, everybody. But before that, we're all playing a couple things. We'll get to that, I suppose. But it seemed like a good week for kind of a themed episode of the podcast. And Leo, was I talking to you about this in San Francisco, about this idea of the greatest games of all time that nobody talks about?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I knew I was talking to somebody about it. So here's the thing. We've all been in those debates about what the greatest game of all time is. I think I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I sat through so many at Game Informer where we're trying to make a list of the top 300 games of all time, the top 100 RPGs of all time, the top this, the top that. And I think I would just get annoyed about, obviously all lists are arbitrary, but it's bizarre that so many outlets, when they make the list of the greatest games of all time, even like top 500, I feel like it's always boiling down to the same handful. And so much of that is just nostalgia, right? It's like, hey, everybody, Super Metroid and Link to the Past, objectively the greatest game of all time. Okay, look, 30 years from now, if these lists are still coming out and it's still Link to the Past at the top of the list, I will shut up and sit back. But like, clearly it's not. Clearly it's just you're passionate about these games because it's what you played as a kid. And so I think there's so many games out there that could be considered and should be in the debate for, yeah, this is probably the greatest game of all time, if you really think about it. And somehow they just never appear near the top of the list. Do you know what I'm saying, Leo?
Yeah, certainly we relate to that. Well, coming up with this list, a lot of inside joke answers were popping into my head based on our shared experience of that.
What kind of stuff?
These
Shared trauma, I think you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What do you mean?
You always mention wizardry.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever you hear Ben Hansen say wizardry, that's what he's joking about.
And look, cool game for back then, no doubt about it. But if you're talking about the greatest games of all time, it's tough to say, well, wizardry obviously still deserves a spot on the top of that list. Important, cool, no doubt, but what are we really talking about here? Like, I always, I'm in love with Tim Schafer, that should be obvious to everybody, but I'm in love with, he's asked all the time about what Double Fine's best game is. And I love his answer where he's like, I've thinking about it a lot. I think it's Connect Party. Like, everybody thinks it's going to be Psychonauts, everybody thinks it's going to be this, going to be that, but like realistically, the game that has brought the most joy from our studio is Connect Party, because I've seen kids go nuts for that game for a decade now. It's like, I love that, just reframing the debate of like, oh yeah, if we're talking about input versus output, yeah, Connect Party is Double Fine's best game compared to what?
So by that metric, should we just say right now Among Us? Like that's the greatest game of all time? If it's what causes the most reaction from children?
That's interesting. I don't know if that's the right criteria, but here's the thing. It's going to be arbitrary. We're not saying that what's typically heralded as the greatest games of all time aren't great games. Obviously, Link to the Past is great. Obviously, Super Metroid is great. Obviously, all those Super Mario Brothers 3. Who's going to say that's not a great game? Leo, this is the part where you might raise your hand.
Honestly, don't like it very much.
Oh, devastating.
Doesn't have to be me.
Yeah, thank God. Sarah, what do you think of when you think the greatest game of all time? What do you think about like those lists? Do you read those lists every time they pop out and say, yes, quite?
I always feel like they're always kind of a miss for me.
Yeah.
Because like growing up, like I played games for girls and those don't end up on the list, right? Because it's like those would never be a game targeting girls, young girls will never be on the list for the greatest game of all time, no matter how much I personally love it.
Right. And what are we talking about? What are these girly games?
Like my love for like Hamtaro, Ham Heartbreak.
Yeah.
My love for all of the CD-ROM games I grew up with, the Barbie games I grew up with, like Barbie Genie, Barbie Super Spy, like any of those games like style savvy. Like that's The Sims. Like The Sims is not going to end up on the list of the greatest games of all time.
I mean,
if it was 100, it would. But you know that it wouldn't crack like.
I don't know. I could see Sims cracking like top 30. I think that is a great contender, though. I think that's one of those games that you could absolutely make the argument that The Sims is the greatest game of all time, and it'd be tough to argue against. It's just no one's going to bat that hard in these big discussions.
IGN has The Sims 3 at number 70 of its top 100.
Wow. Okay.
It should be higher than 70.
It should be higher.
I agree.
Okay, what's number 69 on that list? You got it there?
Splinter Cell Chaos Theory.
Okay, exactly. You're telling me that Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is a better game than The Sims? No. Out of your mind, realistically here. Yeah, I feel like there's always just a little bit of a disconnect between, the press and kind of the wider gaming community. The fact that Counter-Strike Go is one of the most played games of all time, one of the most beloved games of all time, and I feel like it's never anywhere near that conversation. Or even like Siege. Like, Leo, do you think Siege should be up there?
I was thinking about that. I don't know. It's weird to make that claim about a game that's still being changed and is better some seasons than it is others. It's like, which version of Siege is the best game of all time?
Yeah. Well, that's where it all gets murky and falls apart. But anyways, we've gone through and we've collected 3 games, probably more than 3 games that, you know what? They should be in contention. They deserve a spot more than the old classics at the top of the list again and again and again. Sarah, I think I'm most curious about yours. You want to kick it off with a number 3 or something?
My number 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to know what happened with Gravity Rush 2. I want to know what happened because I played that game.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And like, it seems like nobody wants to talk about it.
That's such an odd choice.
Is it?
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, okay, here's what I know about that one. It's all about gravity, and you play as Cat, and you run along buildings or something. I never played any of the Gravity Rush games.
Why not?
I didn't have a Vita.
It's on PS4.
Yeah, but still, what are you going to do, Sarah?
Here is, unfortunately, the thing that I've heard a lot of people say about Gravity Rush 2 is like, boy, it's so fun to like control, and then they like gave up halfway through because there was just so much. The missions weren't as exciting as the controls were. But I haven't played it, so maybe I'm missing out.
But you think it's up there? It should be in the discussion, Sarah?
I think in terms of the top 100 games,
sure,
it should be in the discussion.
Hell yeah. All right. And because I have never played a game that I think that I had so much fun to just controlling the character. I will never feel the momentum of like literally falling through space. And they like designed this really big world where like the buildings are all flipped upside down. It's kind of like it feels like a dreamscape. Like it feels like something out of a fever dream. This society where you have to like fall through the sky to get places. And there's like there's like no roads. Like you literally just have to fall. And as you progress through the game, you can kind of like fall further. And like the missions felt really varied to me. Like some of them were just like delivery missions, like get to these 3 points as fast as possible. But then there's like one mission where it's like put out a fire with your gravity powers. Like you literally had to pick up water and like put out a burning society. And then there's like, the B-side story with whatever's going on with her power. But I just had so much fun with that game. Yeah.
And I don't know where, like, why nobody else picks it up. I don't know, like, where, like, people just seem so uncomfortable. Like, everyone's reaction when I bring up Gravity Rush is like, I just said something I shouldn't, and I don't understand.
We've all had bad experience with Gravity in the past, Sarah. We don't really like to talk about it, but it's
Gravity Rush was mind-blowing for me. For those who haven't like seen it, you basically are flying, but really what you're doing is pointing gravity. So if you're like falling sideways and hit the side of a building, the side of the building is your floor now, and you're running along it. And it's really fun and beautiful and amazing music, especially in Gravity Rush 2. I've used a lot of that music in videos. But I think that is kind of held back by, not to say it's a bad pick, but a lot of games would be held back by having a little bit too much like open world filler in them. It ends up around an 8 out of 10 because it's not like a every part of the package is amazing. And I wonder if more games did a like greatest of all time edition that was like 5 hours of the best content in the game, like it would be much more of a contender.
I love it. Gravity Rush 2, yeah, now in contention for the greatest game of all time edition. I like that idea. Every publisher should just re-release all their old stuff. Be like, okay, but just look at this one again, everybody. Just check this out, please. Now everything you hated is gone. It's round 2, we promise.
It's the opposite of a director's cut.
Yes.
It's now just
or it is the director's cut that they should make, where they just make the movie shorter.
Yes.
Be like, nah, we decided those scenes were not necessary.
Right.
Director's better judgment cut.
I think one, last time I played it, which was on New Show Plus, one that stood out to me for just like, why isn't this in the discussion for possibly the greatest game of all time? Rocket League. I'm sure it's climbing the charts these days, but even going back to it for New Show Plus, it's like, God, I forgot how fun this game is on a basic level. So fun to control. I mean, it's tough to imagine more depth. There's still people playing it today. It just keeps going more and more. The skill ceiling is so high, always gives a great reaction. You're screaming every time you're playing it. And it's just a beautiful, streamlined experience now. But I think if we're talking greatest sports game of all time in particular, I think Rocket League definitely deserves to be very high up in those conversations. And
I think I've said that back at Game Informer. And that was on my list here too, but I'll pick another one because I have backups. But yeah, Rocket League to me controls every bit as perfectly as like any of the greatest. Like it's on the level of Tetris as far as just a perfect design that you could play forever.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know how many I picked that actually fit this criteria, but like the idea of a greatest game of all time being like, it only has like 4 parts, but every part works perfectly. It's like there is zero bloat to Rocket League, at least once you're actually playing it and not in the menus or whatever. But it's like, there is only one thing you do in the game, but that one thing is so good that like that alone kind of elevates it.
Yeah, that kind of funny flag you can attach onto your car, though, I think that's got to go. If we're talking bloat, I feel like that's the one thing that's kind of holding it back. But other than that,
right.
All right, Leo, if that was on your list, I'm curious what that's replaced by.
Let's go with Titanfall 2.
Great choice, Leo.
Thank you.
That's up there with Gravity Rush 2.
Easily, as far as sequels go. Certainly not an underrated game by any means. Everybody loves that game, but I think it could go all the way to greatest of all time discussion. Not just because of its universally beloved campaign, but I think it like got everything right about online multiplayer in a way that still I'm waiting for something to surpass.
Okay. Tell me how wrong I am in my life. But I've played through that campaign twice. Absolutely love it. I think it's the greatest shooter campaign that I've ever played. I've never really dabbled in multiplayer. Am I blowing it? Could I still go back and enjoy the multiplayer for Titanfall 2 in a big way?
If the servers are working, I was kind of getting back into it and then it got DDoS attacked in this whole really complicated scandal that was going on. I don't know where that landed. But if it's up and running, you can still have fun with that game today as a new player for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great pick. No one would.
And I love that it's like part of the benefit of it not flopping over the years, but certainly not doing well enough for them to continue supporting it, is the multiplayer never got like ruined. It never got over monetized. There's just a few DLC packs you can get and get like concrete things out of. But again, it doesn't have that bloat because it was kind of abandoned early, but there's still plenty of content.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, Jacob Geller. Wow us, please.
My number one pick, or number 3, it's so hard. I'm going to say XCOM 2.
Great. Love it. And Sarah's wincing.
This was me thinking about like influence versus just goodness of game, where I feel like XCOM Enemy Unknown definitely the more like influential one, and I mean, if you want to pick the original XCOMs as like the most, but it's like XCOM 2 is the one I want to play, and like if I was going to play one of those games, I think it would be that one, and especially with all the unbelievable amount of content that has been added to that game, like since it came out, there's so much stuff in it, but it all works and it all still kind of like balances within itself. And it's just like, it's kind of the best version of that game.
Yeah, I love that. I never finished XCOM 2, and I feel bad about it. I think I'm just a dumb simpleton. I love Enemy Unknown so much. It's like, I'm trying to wrap my mind around these changes, but I should probably go back to it because, yeah, you're right. And I'm sure at this point, too, like what, War of the Chosen, or was that number 1 DLC? Was that 2
No,
DLC?
it's War of the Chosen, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Sarah, you had a visceral reaction to XCOM.
No. I just haven't played a lot of these games that you guys are bringing up.
You know what? That's fine. I haven't played Gravity Rush 2. This is what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about throwing all these in the pot, Sarah. You can't go wrong. What's your next one, Sarah?
So for my next one, I thought long and hard about it. And I would like to present Chibi Robo to the jury.
Interesting.
For deserving to be on the list out of sheer whimsy. It is on par with Whimsy of Katamari. It is a wonderful game where you explore a house as a tiny robot. It is exciting. The story is good. The puzzles are good. You have to kind of do jumping puzzles to navigate this house as a 3D robot. You know, the 3D space. You're jumping, you're climbing, you're helping this dysfunctional family solve their problems.
Yeah.
There's a girl, the child only ribbits. So this family is broken. This family is in need. The dad's been sleeping on the couch for weeks and weeks and weeks due to finances.
I love it.
You uncover a beautiful story.
As your little cute robot helper cleaning up.
Little robot.
It's kind of like an ET story ultimately, right? Just like the weird out of left field creature comes into play and brings this family together.
Yeah, there's a lot of that I don't know how to describe it, but that wackiness that you only find in games that come out of Japan.
Right.
Where you're this is just it's just getting weird. Sometimes it's just weird for weird's sake and you really can't quite understand why. There's a dinosaur that wants to play music or something that you don't understand.
Yeah.
But it's there and you're going to love it.
I am looking forward to loving this. Just a reminder, everybody, if we hit our next goal on Patreon, we're doing a full Let's Play of Chibi Robo with Sarah and Jeff Cork. And just for a little backstory, Jeff Cork has been wanting to play Chibi Robo all the way through in a stream since 2013, Leo? I think back at Game Informer, he started screaming about it, and every single year he was shot down aggressively, and this is his shot. But we need to hit 2,900 supporters on Patreon. The good news is we are absolutely within striking distance. If a fraction of people watching or listening to this right now just jump in at the $2 tier and unlock all those other benefits, we can hit that goal, and we can actually play through this thing in the studio, which I think will be a very fun time. Please.
Can I say on my longer list, I won't include it, but Katamari was on, I do think that's another, probably should talk about it as maybe the best game of all time.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice for sure. Here's one, and nailing down which one is tough. But I'll just say Rock Band, everybody. I think Rock Band should be in the discussion for the greatest games of all time. Think about how much that can change the dynamic of a group. You talk about your favorite co-op sessions of all time, and best case scenario, you're laughing and smiling a little bit, but think about just the power of the co-op in Rock Band of okay, bridging generations. I will now hand my mother the microphone. Let's sing and play the Beatles tracks together. There's so many amazing moments in Rock Band for just elevating a group, changing moods, changing personalities. You can't give enough love to Rock Band, and I feel like in terms of just the greatest games of all time, it's not brought up enough for just the impact there. Instead of just quietly plucking away on a plastic guitar with Guitar Hero, which no doubt is great, just having that group vibe of a good Rock Band night, unbeatable.
Are you saying Rock Band 1?
I'll say Rock Band 1. If Rock Band 3 is probably the best. Beatles Rock Band is closest to my heart, even though I'm not the world's #1 Beatles fan or anything. I just think that experience is so incredible. Yeah. You know what, Leo? You maybe double think it. Maybe Rock Band isn't good. No, Rock Band 3. I think Rock Band 3. I think if I had to pop in one, I think that'd be the one to go to.
That's my pick too. That had the most longevity for obvious reasons. But yeah, the fact you could include all the other songs in it. And the keyboard, I miss the keyboard.
Yeah.
That was really fun. Because on super expert mode, you're just literally playing the song on piano.
That's so sweet.
Cool.
Wait, I don't remember. Did it have... It came with a full keyboard peripheral?
I think it didn't come with it. I think you had to get it extra, right?
Yeah, whatever only in the complete edition or whatever. But yeah, it was an octave and a half keyboard.
It's so cool. You got another one, Leo?
No one's gonna be surprised by any of my picks if they've ever heard me talk about video games before. Hitman, come on. Hitman 3 specifically.
Hey, raise that voice. Come on, man, raise that voice. You did it.
No, I'm stupid.
No,
and
you're
it
not
just sucks.
stupid, Leo. Come on, man.
Hitman 3, I've gotten more into in the past 3 months than I ever did before. Like, it's somehow my number 1 for this year, even though it was my number 2 for last year. I just like the more you put into that game, the more you get out of it. It's a really underrated, like, immersive sim with all these different parts. And I'm still learning about all the different gadgets I have. Like, I'm having a lot of fun doing all the little side challenges to get every little unlockable for the loadout to plan these ridiculous runs and working backwards. Like, oh, I just started this mission and there's a thing right next to it that if I had a wrench, I could just kill this target immediately and do this in 30 seconds. Let's see how I can get an unlockable starting wrench. Oh, I have to do this many contracts, so I'll go do that and earn this wrench to come back and do this mission this way I want to do it. And there's so many like interlocking objectives I'm giving myself like that just come out of having a game with such interesting systems that are so rewarding. And it's like all of that at such AAA quality graphics and gameplay is like, it just feels to me like a game from a different universe where games are like so much more interesting.
Well, we're pulling that universe into our universe now, Leo. That's the point, I think, of this podcast episode, is to finally combine those and give Hitman the recognition it deserves.
It could be this universe.
If we all will it into existence. Jacob Geller, you got another one, dude?
Okay, yeah. Number 2, I'm going to say Bayonetta.
The original Bayonetta.
The original Bayonetta. And this is one where it's like, maybe you could make the argument that 2 is more fun to play. But I think, like, Bayonetta is just, it is such a statement of a game. I feel like I've never played a game, like, as in love with itself as Bayonetta is, in a kind of incredible way. Like, not the Kojima way, although I also love Kojima being in love with itself, but, like Bayonetta just ends with a music video where like all the characters in the game just dance, and like those are like the end credits. And I think it's like there was a genre that basically only existed as Devil May Cry, and then Bayonetta showed up and did virtually everything that Devil May Cry does better and more stylishly, and in a way that I feel like now, if you were making one of those kinds of games, you are comparing it to Bayonetta instead of Devil May Cry. I just think it's the best. I think it's, you know, just kind of like the video gamiest hit people with a sword and kick them with your guns you could possibly find.
Yeah, I love it. Sarah, you got probably 1,000 more, but do you got another big one?
Yeah. So knowing that The Sims is already on the 100 list, we've like cleared that.
Yeah, but it should be much higher. It should be much higher.
Yeah, it should be much higher.
Yeah.
I would like to present Okami
Ooh,
as a game that
excellent.
I feel like should be on the list and
Excellent.
near the top.
Ooh, near the top.
I would okay, but like maybe my issue with Okami is that after you defeat Orochimaru, it does kind of go on a little bit too long after that.
Well, that's the first 25% of the game.
Yeah, and then they're like, here's the rest of the game. But yeah, just beautiful game, beautiful music, wonderful idea with drawing with the brush, like a beautiful interpretation of Japanese mythology.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Great game. I really wish they would, I don't know, make more of them, please.
Well, did you play Okami Den on the DS?
No, I played the re-release.
Oh, okay.
I didn't play the DS. I played one of the many, many re-releases.
Okay. Yeah, Hunter Sachs wrote in from the community also championing Okami, saying like, it's the best,
I'm
best Zelda.
100% on board with this. It's kind of wild to me that it's not. I mean, it's a game with problems. Like, it is like 60 hours long for some reason,
right.
But like undeniably one of the most beautiful games ever made. And like any stretch of those, like any 10 hours in that game is great and compelling. It's just like maybe there are too many of them, but like there aren't like bad parts. It's an amazing game.
Yeah. This one is on the bubble because I feel like it's been creeping its way up lists ever since it released, and now it's getting near the top, but I feel like 10 years from now, this is probably going to be the top, and it's tough to argue with. Minecraft, everybody. What are we doing? If we're talking about the greatest games of all time, are you saying that...
I feel like, isn't that already at the top of the list?
It's getting up there now. So that's what I'm saying. There's a bit of an asterisk on this one. I just think every time I play that game, it is just this overwhelming feeling of like, what's every other game even trying? This is obviously the greatest game of all time, especially like introducing kids to it, like watching my nephews get into that. I feel like I can't introduce them to any other game now. What am I going to do? Be like, hey, you should play the remake of Spyro. It's a really good game. It's like, okay. Can I build anything and go anywhere in an infinite world? Well, no, but you get to shoot fire at a butterfly. You know, it's like there's no, you can't even compete with it. And every time it's like, no, Doom is a better game than Minecraft. It's okay. What are we doing here, everybody? Let's get with the times. Just a sense of adventure in that world. Survival mode is definitely the way that I like to go. But yeah, Minecraft, I feel like it's climbing up, no doubt about it. But I feel like in short time, it should and will be just number one forever.
Yeah, I feel like there are some games that like came out and maybe were a little bit under the radar, but have stood the test of time compared to the other games released in that year. Stardew Valley came out in 2016.
Yes.
Absolute sleeper.
Yep.
But it remains one of the most popular games today.
Yeah, I think that's another one. Like, you know, talking about greatest games of all time, Stardew Valley should absolutely be in the discussion at this point. Yeah, for sure. Leo, you got one, dude?
Yeah.
And I promise I'll stop calling you dude.
Okay. Here's one. Try this one on for size. Let me know how you like it.
Okay.
Drawful 2.
Love it, dude. Love it, dude. You kidding me? Yes. Yes, Leo.
Yeah.
You talk about the reactions from that game, the good feelings it creates, and still the game design is a fun, clever idea. Absolutely Drawful 2.
Absolutely. Of all the Jackbox games you could rightfully pick, that one just sticks out to me because it's like really simple core mechanics that are different with everybody you play it with. And it has the custom word list mode. So you and your friends can just throw out a bunch of words and play it forever, for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, and you should. Yeah, I was thinking about putting Quiplash on this list. And it's like, as much as I love that, like the design of Quiplash is almost a little too simple.
Quiplash 3 would be the only possible contender because of how bad the round 3 of both.
Right,
Quiplash 1 and 3
right.
is.
But I think Drawful 2, yeah, I think that's a great choice. Jacob Geller, you got another one?
Yeah, I do. I feel like they're not as cool picks as these. Slay the Spire is my pick.
Yes.
Which is just kind of, it's like, I just can't think of like a more perfectly designed game than Slay the Spire. Like, I kind of can't believe that someone was just able to make a game that is that kind of complex and infinitely replayable, seemingly like forever.
Yeah.
Just that it's like it never. I don't know. It's like watching someone invent like Mahjong or whatever, and just like, here's a new game that like you can play for 100 years.
Yeah, honestly, that was another one that I was thinking about because I've seen all my friends just endlessly play Slay the Spire. I mean, I think Grant has put like 1,000 hours into it. It is just mind-boggling. It's like, yeah, how come I never hear this in the discussion for the greatest game of all time? Like the impact that it has for the people that love it, it should absolutely be in the discussion.
There were actually several roguelikes that I was trying to juggle because a lot of them have that feeling. Like Into the Breach is another one that I think is kind of a perfectly designed game. And like, I've played, 600 hours of The Binding of Isaac, which like, is another one. But it's like, when it comes down to it, just on a pure design level, Slay the Spire, kind of unbeatable.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think I was debating Hades. Like, I think that at this point, it's another one of those games that's just unimpeachable on almost every front.
I thought Hades was actually almost too widely recognized for this list. That people like it too much.
Yeah. Sarah, you said you had a million more?
Yeah, I also took one off my list because I was worried it was like too well liked, but I had Divinity Original Sin 2.
That's such a good choice. Yeah, somebody wrote in from the community about it as well.
I love that. I could play that game, and every time you play it, it's different. You can play with other people. It's so good.
Wow, I didn't know you were a Divinity person.
No, that's like, I love that stuff.
Do you play co-op?
Yes, I think that's the best way to play.
Okay.
So I've like started several games with several different people.
I heard there was something about like the way you scroll the text is kind of frustrating in co-op or something.
I've never run into any frustrating thing with like text scrolling. Maybe
Okay.
they fixed it.
Yeah.
But it's just so much better with other players. It really does feel like a D&D session.
Yeah. Tristan Rousset wrote in with that one. I think that's a great pick. All right, should we just rapid fire a bunch of these?
Here, wait, can I
Yeah.
rapid fire
Please.
my own ones that didn't make the
Sure.
Okay. One, Eco. I know we all put Shadow of the Colossus kind of at the top, but I think Eco is just as good. Two, Inside.
Yes.
A perfectly made game.
Yes.
I think it actually does get the recognition it deserves generally, but it's like I could easily argue that for the best game of all time.
Absolutely.
And my most indie pick is a horror game called Anatomy, which is a very small game, but is it's well known if you're a fan of me because I've talked about it a bunch. But it's just like, it's an indie game. It's made by a woman named Kitty Horrorshow. It's the scariest game I've ever played, and I think it is like conceptually perfect and just exists within itself.
What's the name of that one again?
Anatomy. It's like an itch.io game.
Gotcha. Sorry, Sarah, you got more? Rapid fire down these suckers?
Yeah. I had on here, I don't know. This is when like the list kind of starts to fall apart, but I had like Final Fantasy 14 for the sheer turnaround on that game.
I think that should be in the running. Absolutely.
Absolutely Phoenix rising from the ashes.
That's right.
Obviously Outer Wilds. I feel like that's a given being on the list. I also really like Night in the Woods, but I feel like it's not as impeachable as some of my other games.
As unimpeachable?
Yeah, as unimpeachable.
Yeah. I hear you. I think Night in the Woods, I think that's a contender. I think, not to get too dark, I feel like the development of that game is now so mired in some really dark stuff that I have a tough time going back to it and then loving it as I did when it first launched. But I think you're right. I think that's totally worthy of being in the discussion. Other unimpeachable stuff. Look, people are sick of hearing me talk about it. Super Puzzle Fighter 2. I think is another game that's unimpeachable. My favorite competitive game, I think, at this point. Leo, please back me up. Peggle. You can argue Peggle?
Oh, yeah.
Is anyone going to have a
yeah,
problem with
that's a
that?
good pick.
Absolutely one of the greatest games of all time. Simple, yes. Delightful, yes. Tony Hawk.
Universal appeal.
That's right. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, debatable which one, 2 or 3. I think you could totally make the case for just being such a tight little system there. Is anybody else? Leo, you got something to run down?
I would have gone XCOM Enemy Unknown above XCOM 2 personally. I feel like I just keep bouncing off XCOM 2, but maybe I would Enemy Unknown too. I've gone back to that one less.
Yeah.
But another broken record one, Streets of Rogue. If you just play those procedurally generated missions, trying to use your ability and your items as cleverly as you can to avoid conflict as much as possible, it is just impossible not to have a new fun moment you've never had before in that game every time you play it, for how many hundreds of hours I have in it at this point.
God, that's amazing. And it's on everything now, right?
Yeah, great on Switch.
Great. Streets of Rogue is the name of that one. People from the community jumped in and threw out suggestions. Catherine Gilbert says Chicory should be in contention. It's an interesting choice. We love it. Victor Pham, Devil May Cry 5. All right. Pelican Man, Batman Arkham City. Doesn't get enough love, they're saying.
I thought about it. I think it does. Like, if you search top 100 lists, Arkham City is usually on it.
Yeah,
but
okay.
It's a freaking great game.
But I think it's easily arguable. They're like, oh, that could be the greatest game of all time. Sure. Jai Bones here says the original Animal Crossing, greatest of all time, doesn't get enough love. I agree. Kelsey Lewin would agree. It's her favorite game of all time. Tom Blackburn says The Witcher 2 does not get enough love. Everybody jumps on with 3, but 2. Come on, everybody, give it up. Interata, Beautiful Joe, love it. Jordan Brown is a man after my heart saying Baton Kaitos, Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean. Hell yeah.
I was thinking about that, but I was like, is that too weird?
No, I don't think so. Didn't 8.4 localize Baton Kaitos?
I don't know. That would have been way before my time.
It was. I think they did, though.
That would have been extremely before my time.
Ray Sweat writes in Resident Evil Remake. I don't think there's a game I've played through more. It's incredibly tense when you first run it through, and the replay value is also great once the stress and fear is gone.
I love that choice.
Yeah, that's totally a good pick. Totally. Jeff Mayer, Rock and Roll Racers, and also Biker Mice from Mars.
Sure.
Hoots writes in with Kid Icarus Uprising. Hell yeah. Ian T. Clark with Splatoon 2. All right, I got to hear this E&T Clark out. And he says, wait, hear me out. Excellent third-person shooter, solid game mechanics, underrated and underappreciated single-player campaign, continuous support and free updates from Nintendo 4 years after launch, no microtransactions, fantastic paid DLC campaign, motion controls that are actually good, and a player base that is still active to this very day. I can go on, but it all checks out. Splatoon 2, greatest of all time. Hey, I love it. Bear Commando, Mercenaries, of course, for PlayStation 2. Kit N with The Swapper. Greatest of all time contender. Love it. Also Tetris Effect. Yes. Hey. Yeah. Two birds with that one. D's Butts. Forgive the name, but of course they're choosing Smash Brothers Melee. I love that. Yeah. You can easily argue that. Malcolm Holiday, Cave Story. Evan One Sonic with Kingdom Hearts 3. Chris Culkins with Jade Empire. Ethan Poe with Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Trim writes in arguing for Minesweeper. Love it. Jesse L, not championing, but they're arguing for Xenogears should be the running for the greatest game of all time. Vince L with Return to the Obra Dinn. Stephen Woodson with Terraria. James Smith with Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Hell yeah. Come on. Who's going to argue that? That game's so ridiculously good. Sean Robbins with Lock's Quest on the DS. Does anybody know Lock's Quest? It's a sweet tower defense brawler with a different tower defense minigame in it. Huh. All right. Love it. Christopher Reardon, Dragon Quest Builders 2. Hell yeah. Love it. Christopher Reardon, also with Star Ocean Second Story. Darwin here. I thought about this one. Subnautica. Subnautica, you could argue, is the greatest game of all time. Javi writes in with Gladius for Xbox and PlayStation 2. Solar Lancer says Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals. Hell yeah. Darkfish Days, Crosscode. They're saying could be the greatest game of all time. Yeah, that indie RPG that I feel like not enough people talked about. James says Einhander. Love it. Ty McWhorter, Miss Pac-Man. Yeah, I feel like that's up there. It's up there on a lot of those lists, but it's also very tough to argue.
That's a Link to the Past.
It is
answer right. Of just like, isn't Pac-Man Championship Edition probably better in every way than Miss Pac-Man?
That's a great question. I don't know. Jose L, Planescape Torment. Gabriel Cleveland, Breath of Fire 4. Hendrik Morton says Valkyria Chronicles. Benjamin here. Oh, man after my own name and my own heart. Super Hexagon. Belongs at the top of any greatest of all time list, says Benjamin. Hell yeah, it does. Dr. Fup WS says Lumines. Love it. Sean Mills, King's Quest 6. Philly Yeatsteak, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. Love it. Absolutely. Jacob Hubbard says, hey, a lot of people talk about Tony Hawk games. I would go with American Wasteland is potentially the greatest of all time, which I know Leo's salivating over just the mention of it.
That's my personal favorite. But I think, honestly, Project 8 is like the most perfect game in the series.
Really? Project 8? Why that one?
That game is incredible. It's like, it does the same thing American Wasteland does, where all the levels are connected, except without the, placeholder hallways between them.
Yeah.
So you literally can combo between every level on the map, and it becomes this like open world skateboarding game, which was kind of ahead of its time for that.
I love it.
And gorgeous, and Nail the Trick mode's fun, Yeah,
it is gorgeous.
Flipping the board all the weird ways.
Well, there you go, everybody. There's a bunch of games that absolutely should be in contention for the greatest game of all time. So next time you see that big list come out from a big site, you say, nay, what about these? And then just copy and paste all the ones that we mentioned on this episode.
We used to joke about doing a segment on the podcast where we would just people would send in the names of games and we'd read them and go, yeah, totally. Just one after the other and never comment on them. And I feel like today we've accomplished that.
I've accidentally stumbled into that. Yeah, you're totally right. I don't know. I don't want to break the illusion for you, Leo, but that's video game podcast is people just saying the names of games and everyone else goes, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Hey, speaking of which, Weird West. Yeah.
That's a video game.
Yeah. We've talked about it for a couple weeks now. Leo, you've definitely played the most out of this thing. So I'm curious, as you've spent more time with Weird West, what you think of it. This is the immersive sim isometric perspective from the co-founders of Arcane, creators of Dishonored, all that stuff. Some of them went on to make this funky, weird thing with a lot of player freedom and expression. But yeah, how's it kind of sitting with you after all these weeks, Leo?
Well, I switched from PlayStation to PC. I had complaints about the controls, and on mouse and keyboard, it's completely cured. Like, I have no complaints about that game anymore, pretty much. I'm really falling in love with it. It's, as I get into more of the story, for a while I was kind of hooked into just doing the bounties, which didn't have that much variety as far as procedural generation. But once you get into the missions and start exploring the sandboxy areas, some really interesting stories start playing out. For instance, I remembered from my PlayStation playthrough that this one guy I was going to talk to had some dirt hidden in his mansion that if I found, I could like circumvent the mission a little bit. So I went there ahead of time and prowled around, and I pickpocketed this key off of somebody, and I was trying to figure out where it goes. It didn't seem like anywhere useful, and then I got caught, and I could either fight my way out or just go to jail. And so I go to jail, and I can choose to either pay a fine and get out, or serve my sentence and like take a reputation hit, you know?
Yeah.
And then once I pay my fine, I come out into this town I've never been before, in this side of the map I've never been before that I got carted off to. And I explore the town, make my way back, bunch of emergent moments out of that, you know, encounters along the road. And then I get back to the place and try to figure out what the key is for. And it's for the back door of the whole villa. And the reason that matters is because if they spot you somewhere, like you just talk to a townsperson, they spot you in the town, and then you sneak around and steal something, they're going to be able to make the connection like it was the new guy. It was the guy I've never seen around here before. Right. And you'll get a wanted level off of that. But if you never enter the town at all, sneak around the back and use the backdoor key, then I can like hop in the window and get into the building in this new way that I like wouldn't have mattered if I didn't get carted out to jail, you know?
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have helped just from pickpocketing off that guy. But then I had this fresh start, and then I got in, and then I ended up not having enough lock picks and going to these nearby areas that had these small things to do that I would do while looking for lock picks until I found enough, because you need like 5 to get in this chest. And it's like, I just played for a few hours last night, and just countless stories like that were playing out that felt so specific to me, which is obviously something I love. I love a story generator. Like, I had a partner I really loved, and they died, and I had to bury them, but my shovel had just broken because I uncovered this mound of cash I needed for this other objective in the place. And so I go to do this other mission at a mine because I know there's going to be shovels there because they're placed logically. Like, I shouldn't just look in random places for shovels. I should go to where shovels would be.
Right.
And I eventually find one, and I come back, but the townspeople have buried my partner already.
I was going to say, what happened to the body while you left it?
I wasn't sure how fast it would be for them to bury it, but yeah, when I got back, the graveyard was full of all the bodies I had killed and of hers, and I just visited her grave and kneeled at it. And and after she died, like, having to take off the like amulet and armor I'd given her, like,
did you have to dig her up to get it?
I did it before I left the body.
Okay.
Don't worry, he left the naked corpse unburied.
That's right. That's right. He has
That's
his
what
dignity.
my character would do.
It's in character. It counts.
And I want to say there's multiple journeys. I was excited to get past the bounty hunter one because I know there's more supernatural stuff. And the reveal of who you are for the second journey is like, I'm instantly going to be finishing this game.
Ooh.
I kind of want to spoil it. I kind of don't. Do we want to give a spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning, everybody.
Is it not?
I want to know.
Please tell me it's not an alien.
Okay, but hang on. Spoiler warning, everybody.
Please,
for the next
for the love of God.
For the next couple minutes, we'll put a time code below for you. But this is not for the end of the game. This is for the character you're playing as, for the second character out of like 5 or 6 or something.
Yes, out of 5, and it's like 3 or 4 hours in. If you're not doing too much side stuff.
All right, please.
You are fighting a bunch of enemies of various supernatural ilk in the first journey. Some of the most horrifying are pigmen. You're getting ambushed by pigmen. There's a whole region of the map with pigmen encampments and stuff. And the second journey starts, and you have just been turned into a pigman. You find out that every pigman is sentient but can't communicate and is just treated like a monster.
Oh my God.
And now you're playing as one.
Pigman, Jerry. That's bizarre. So can you communicate then? Can you talk as a pigman?
To other pigmen.
Okay.
But you enter towns and they just warn you that you need to leave.
I love that. This seems so cool.
I have a question about this, which is that, Leo, you're very good at making your own fun in games, and I feel like I am not very good at that. Like, if a game relies on like me doing things in creative ways, I don't know. I choose kind of like the path of least resistance, and then it's boring. Do you have to like be creative, or is the game creative for you?
Interesting. I think it's a little creative for you. For instance, so much of value I get out of games is like, can I tell someone this story that happened to me excitedly? And this game has lots of that, whether you're looking for it or not. For instance, one of the first people you can find and help as a side mission, you give them medicine. On my PlayStation playthrough, I gave him medicine. He gave me his map to his treasure. And then later I was in trouble and he jumped into the fight and it said, this character has come to your aid because you saved them doing this. Like, it's got cool presentation of that. And then this playthrough, I didn't even notice that guy never showed back up again, even though I healed him again. And I ended up going back to that location for another reason. And he was just like 3 feet from the bed I found him on and gave him medicine on, dead on the floor. Like, in this playthrough, the medicine didn't take and he just died anyway.
Oh, wow.
And there's stuff like your parents being in a different place, like randomly generated every playthrough. Like, there is a lot of just generation where you're going to get unique stuff. But I think, like a lot of immersive sims, you get out of it what you put in. If you care to think like, these people have this status effect, if I invest in this upgrade, I can capitalize on it and counter it. Like, those kinds of satisfying moments are still going to be the highlight of the combat, and they do require some care, some creativity.
Yeah, I saw the writer Kara Ellison, who worked on like Vampire the Masquerade 2. She worked on Dreams and a bunch of other stuff. But she had an interesting Twitter thread about Weird West where she was talking about like, yeah, this game's really a testament to the value of not burning out talent in the industry in a big way, because the fact that this is like a largely senior team of former Arcane developers, they know how to make this type of game. This game is incredibly complex, but they've made so many immersive sims at this point that like the fact that they could release this game and develop it just within a couple of years for something that has so many permutations and possible storylines is stunning. And I thought that was an interesting take from her. Like, oh yeah, it's a little bit like that, Death Stranding miracle of like, how did they release that game so quickly? You think that would take forever, but it's like, oh no, they just had a very seasoned veteran team that stuck with Kojima and they knew how to make this type of thing, and bam, they could get it out the door. Also, this is maybe, Jacob Geller, tell me if this is too much in the weeds, please just raise your hand. But thinking about Weird West and just like the evolution of the immersive sim genre, and it's really bizarre to think about like, okay, one of the first big immersive sims is Ultima Underworld, which was a spin-off of Ultima, which was a top-down RPG. And then like, you think about how all this stuff is flowing from the tree, and you think about Ultima Underworld, then bleeding into Deus Ex, all these other Thief, the immersive sim, Dishonored, all that stuff, and that keeps growing. And then there's an offshoot with Weird West, where now we're making an isometric RPG that's also an immersive sim, in some ways like getting back almost to that Ultima thread of the original line. You didn't raise your hand. Is that an interesting thought?
No, because I saw people questioning, like, is this really an immersive sim, kind of with the implicit, like, well, it's not a first-person game. Like, seemingly
right.
like, that's what we've decided is like, well, it doesn't look like Prey or Dishonored or whatever, so, like, maybe it's not an immersive sim. But I think, yeah, the idea that, like, the trappings of this genre aren't reliant on, like, control method.
Right.
That you can have games that look radically different, but like play in the same way, because what you're doing isn't based on like being able to aim at something the best.
Yeah. Or even, it goes back to the great debate about if Breath of the Wild is an immersive sim, which we asked Rafael Colantonio in an interview about it, and he said he was completely on board. And then at some point, basically, there's a point in the game where it said no to him as a player, and therefore he cast it off into the darkness, and he no longer considered Breath of the Wild an immersive sim. Where it's like, okay, sure. Okay, Leo, also, hey, we got to catch up on all this fun stuff. Also, there's a game that you checked out at GDC that's a VR game, and it's from the creators of Job Simulator, one of the greatest VR games, called Cosmonious High.
That's right.
Okay.
It's similar to Job Simulator in that they're gamifying just dinking around and throwing stuff at other stuff.
Love it.
A bunch of VR toys, but there's a bit more of a narrative wrapping to it. You're going to this sci-fi high school with these cutesy alien characters of all these weirdly well thought out alien races. I kind of expected a more random sense of humor from the job simulator folks, but it's really like consistent and there's a lore to it while still being presented very comedically. And I did laugh within the first 2 minutes.
You did. And what did that laugh sound like? Wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty genuine.
So you're just running around this high school throwing things around?
You have abilities. It's interesting always interesting seeing a VR game where the developer clearly loves VR and took all their favorite VR things. Things like backpack management, where you're like placing items in free space. You can put them anywhere, but you're like organizing them in your own little mental way of like, I'm going to put all my little trinkets over in this corner. There's like a power. You have a bunch of powers. One of them is drawing in 3D space, you know, like an art game where or not even an art game, like VR art software.
Yeah.
Where you've got a 3D brush, except you're doing that to like connect wires throughout the school because you're kind of fixing it up with their various powers. You're using the 3D painting to like make a little piece of art, and then you take out your camera, take a picture of it. It prints out a Polaroid. You bring that over to this part of the art studio, and it goes up on the wall, and you get like a credit for that. It's like doing a bunch of little toy things, sometimes directly instructed, and sometimes you're just figuring it out from the environment.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, it is gamifying dinking around in a more engaging way than ever before.
How is locomotion?
It's teleport only. Okay. It does seem like a really good first VR game for people, because high comfort for that for sure.
Yeah.
It's on Quest 2 and Steam VR.
Right on. Cosmonious High. How's your VR escapade going, Sarah? Do you feel like you're cooling off on the whole thing?
It's harder than I expected to find games that are worth playing on VR. I just kind of listen to whatever Leo says, and I play whatever he suggests, because it's kind of not as well curated through Steam.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've noticed. Is you can go through and you can look through the top games, but if you try to look through like all of the VR games, it's a lot of mature games. That's the first thing that struck me. It's a lot of porn. It's a lot of porn.
Valve.
That is the first thing that struck me. I was like, oh, like I should have seen this coming, but the absolute scale of it was, I was just like, oh my God.
I mean, that's why I use VR as the scale. It's incredible.
Absolutely, yeah, this absolute scale.
Yeah, I guess I never even look in that corner of Steam, but basically the same way that all
scrolling like VR games to try to find something cool. It's I mean, that's games in general on Steam. I feel like now, like when I do the Steam Secret Stash, I'm like,
just every single one. Yeah, if you filter out no porn games, like, oh, it turns out 3 games released this month on Steam. I'll be damned. The rest of them are just visual novels with big boob anime women. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I do want to say, by the way, VR dungeon porn nightmare is my VR rec of the week.
Oh, cool. Yeah, all right. Thanks, Leah. I have to check it out.
It has been, I mean, it's like, I feel like it's been a pretty good year for games so far, but like, I have not, I played and loved Resident Evil 4 VR, and like my Quest has just been kind of sitting in its case since then. Like it doesn't feel like there have really been any kind of headline games that have come out recently.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Hey everybody. Did you know that if you like this show, you can help support the show in a very direct way by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's and unlock a beautiful benefit over there. Again, please help us hit that goal. We're so close to hitting that goal for Chibi Robo. It'll be fun. And you can help support us just like people support us who are the developers or creators of Azul Queen's Garden, the new tabletop game. This is not an expansion for Azul. This is a whole new version of Azul, which is one of the greatest tabletop games of all time. And Azul Queen's Garden is a sequel that ups the complexity, offers more puzzle-like depth is the way that they put it. I played it. It is beautiful, and here's the reason it's up in the complexity. One of the small reasons is shift from tiles like in Azul. Now it's all hex-based. So you're building out all of this stuff. The reviews are off the charts for Azul Queen's Garden. I think it's like even higher reviewed than baseline Azul. So if you like Azul, but you want some more complexity, you can check out Azul Queen's Garden, everybody. Also, thank you to our friends at IM8bit. They want you to know about Eastward, which is a new limited edition board game that they have partnered to create. It is a co-op game for 2 to 4 players. And this is where it gets odd, but funky, is there's also the vinyl. soundtrack for Eastward, which in and of itself is a tabletop game, and you can combine it with the board game for Eastward, and then that acts as an expansion for that board game. So really, they've designed 2 tabletop games for Eastward. You can check it out along with everything else in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. So please go there, and if you use the promo code National Soft Pretzel Month, all one word, National Soft Pretzel Month, you get 10% off everything under $100 in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, and you should help support I Am 8-Bit because they support us in a huge way, not only through having us plug all these things on the podcast every week, but also because they ship out prizes to the MinnMax community. Whoever has the best questions submitted over on Patreon each and every week, they ship out a prize. And this week, they're shipping out a physical version of Manifold Garden on the Nintendo Switch. Just out of the kindness of their hearts, they just ship you a game, a physical game on Switch. It's wonderful. So please help support them. So everybody here needs to really look alive and remember who was the best question of the week, because they're going to win Manifold Garden on the Switch. And then next week, we're giving out a copy of Battletoads, the vinyl soundtrack to Battletoads. So if you want to jump in and win that, you can submit a great question over on Patreon. Hey, before we get to that, Leo, for probably a month now, you've been saying, hey, I have a Better Quest goal. I'd like to jump in here with a Better Quest goal, everybody. And I just have been very rude and have ignored you the whole time. Better Quest, please, by the way, we encourage you to write in with your own goal about some sort of means of self-improvement and hold yourself accountable. And you can give yourself a month to just try something new. We like when people write in with that stuff. But Leo, you want to set a new goal for yourself here?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have been denying me this because you're afraid I'll get too good. I'll get too powerful if I improve in too many ways.
Yeah, you'll become like Jafar at the end of Aladdin. I just worry about you at the end of this Better Quest journey, man.
Yes, and I want to say that's completely valid and will happen because this Better Quest goal is long overdue for me. As an on-screen personality, full-time for years, I've often been called upon to do impressions, and
okay.
And I try to be game for it, but it's one of the things I'm worst at on the planet Earth. And my lovely girlfriend will vouch for that, certainly, whenever I launch into a classic bit with any tasteful accent. But my goal is to get actually good at 3 impressions in a month.
Do you have the 3 picked out, or just like...
No, but they will be unconventional. They won't be long, broken impressions like, your Christopher Walkens or what have you. They'll be unconventional ones, and they'll be accurate.
And they're specific.
Yeah, specific people.
So you're not going to be like, this is my Canadian accent. Hey, this is my Nova Scotian accent. We're talking...
Maybe I'll do 1 accent and 2 impressions, or maybe I'll just do 3 impressions.
What? Can you give us a taste of like an impression that you do well now?
He just said he doesn't do them well, and that's why he's working on them.
Well, I know. I want to have a baseline for when we hear how much he's improved.
Oh, you want like a before and after?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be the same person, but just like, Jacob, who's an easy impression that people do all the time?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, love it. All right.
Get to the chopper.
Wow. All right. So everybody, when you're wondering how much he's going to improve, that's the baseline. And at the end of a month, he's going to come in and do a sick impersonation. Maybe even he'll impersonate Sarah and then do the entire podcast as Sarah, and you won't even know it. That's how good he's going to be by the end of this frickin' month.
That would be nice to just like bring somebody else to play the part of me for once. Like, here, you do it.
Yeah. Are you sick of playing the part of you, by the way, Sarah? I've been meaning to ask you.
You just go in, say that you like Chibi Robo, Gravity Rush, and Animal Crossing, and then you can just leave. You've done it.
Yep.
You've checked the boxes.
You get it.
They have those in Mission Impossible. In addition to the masks, they have the little like throat tape that they put on themselves that then just like changes their voice into that person's voice. Always wanted one of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
What if we find out that I used that to complete this goal? That's a big scandal.
No, that would be null and void. Yeah, that would really just drive a wedge through the
What if we
MinnMax
found out that
community.
you've been using that this whole time, and what we think of as the Leo Vader voice is actually one that you chose intentionally?
And my real voice is my Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Alan Long submits a question over on Patreon saying, hey, what's the best video game you've ever received as a gift or Christmas or birthday present? And it still brings you joy to think about to this day. Mine has to be when I received Metal Gear Solid 2, and my brother and I passed the controller back and forth for hours trying to get a perfect score on the tanker section. I love that, just replaying that section over and over again. Best game as a gift. What jumps out for everybody?
I can't remember. I think it was probably for Hanukkah. But I received Super Mario Galaxy as a gift, and the specific thing that makes this like stand out in my brain was like, for some reason I couldn't stay up late that night, but my dad was like, well, you can wake up as early as you want tomorrow to play this, and I just like couldn't sleep, and so I like went and started playing it at like 4 a.m. and then like 2 hours later he got up and he was like, oh, okay, and I was had stars in my eyes of playing the best Mario game, but it was like, it was special, and he was like, well, I did say he could get up as early as he wanted, so like it's fine that he started playing Super Mario Galaxy at 4 a.m.
I love that. I love that idea of late night by yourself as a kid, inches from the TV, playing Super Mario Galaxy for the first time. Oof, that's up there for greatest moments of your life, Jacob Geller.
No, it hasn't been better since. That was the top.
Smart. Anybody else got one that pops out for him?
I did get Rock Band for Christmas.
Oh, that's
But how
so
many,
good.
like, did you get the guitars and the drums?
It was the guitar and the drums.
Ooh.
And of course, it always came with the mic, right?
Yeah.
And it was nice because the guitar, the Rock Band 1 guitar, was kind of weird. It had the more like strummable
Yep.
interaction
Mushy,
that we
yeah.
weren't fully on board for, but we had the Guitar Hero controllers already, and those worked with it. And so being able to just use those, what a perfect Christmas morning that was.
Did you play with the family?
Yeah, me and my sister just jumping around on every instrument.
Did your parents play?
I don't think so.
But isn't your dad like in a band and stuff?
No, they like music.
Oh. What wasn't
Famously.
what? Well, yeah, I always connected because like, didn't Matt Helgeson know your dad? I thought that was from like a music band thing or something.
From the indie scene, the Minneapolis music scene, yeah, but
Okay.
my dad was just a supporter.
I just really like
fan.
the scene, and a supporter of us on Patreon. He's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Vader.
Shouts out.
Mike Lynch writes in and says, hey, y'all, what game has the best interior decoration? You can judge it by whether the design choices make the world feel lived in or you just love the look. Mike says that his choice is Edith Finch. Solid.
Yeah.
Oh, he meant the best. I thought it was like decorating game, and I was like The Sims. Like, you can't even argue any. Like, it's the best. What are you like?
But you have to say your house in The Sims specifically has the best interior.
Yeah, I mean, if you're very good at interior decoration, then it could be The Sims.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that works then. But yeah, does anybody else have a location that jumps out or a game for the overall decoration?
What came to mind for me immediately was Ghostwire Tokyo, playing that recently. Like, so many of the side missions taking you into these little apartments or bigger houses and doing your little exorcisms there. Like,
Yeah.
I love the detail in those small spaces. A lot of it repeats, but it still is really interesting to just explore that kind of environment that beautifully.
Yeah, totally.
I really like Deathloop as a recent one of just like they're like 4 different kind of nightclubs in Deathloop, and they all feel like completely different and have like really different styles and whatever. Like that one that disables your powers when you go in, I just remember being like so cool and stylish.
Yeah, I was thinking of Prey even. Like, I love the environment design of Prey. Manic Pixel writes in, what is the most niche Disney character / property you want to see in our beloved Kingdom Hearts 4? Get as weird as you want with it. By the way, we talk about Kingdom Hearts 4 on Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive podcast, if you want to hear Sarah and Jan and I unpacking that trailer with the community. Yeah, most niche Disney character and property you'd like to see.
I looked up everything Disney owns, and it's a pretty big infographic, so I'll be studying this for a minute here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, take your time.
I have always felt the loss in my heart of what could have been Epic Mickey, like
Yes!
the kind of like original pitch for Epic Mickey versus what the game actually was. But I think it's Oswald, who's like the weird mouse that's not Mickey Mouse.
It's
that
a
was
lucky
kind
rabbit,
of like
please, but yeah.
a villain, right? But it's like, yeah, I want to see the like weird old Disney characters that are kind of like feel spurned by the corporation because they never got the same spotlight.
Yes, basically just hand Nomura and the Kingdom Hearts team all of the concept art from Epic Mickey and be like, yeah, but just make this into a cool world, please. Just as somebody take another stab at that, please. Yeah, I was thinking old Disney stuff. I'm a bit of an animation nerd, but like going back and just having an entire world that's all about the silly symphonies, like mixing and matching all of those weird shorts from Disney, some of their earliest stuff, like Skeleton Dance. If you've never seen Skeleton Dance, the old silly symphony, it's frickin' sweet. Just a bunch of black and white skeletons doing bizarre dances, or The Old Mill, just like super deep, weird animation cuts from early in the day. Or my other favorite Disney property, now that they own 20th Century Fox, Gone Girl. If there could be a Gone Girl world in Kingdom Hearts 4, I feel like that would go some places. I'd be interested to see.
Very cool.
Thanks.
They own ABC, so I'm going to say Hurley from Lost.
Like inside his body, like Magic School Bus?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That makes more sense. I love it. What about this? Ooh, just ultimate animation geekdom. What if it's just the world is the old Disney animation studio from like, let's say early 40s. And then you're just traveling around and like meeting all the old animators and stuff and watching them work as they're creating all these classic characters and worlds. There's something there.
That's good. They also own the History Channel, so they could go anywhere in human history, do it Assassin's Creed style.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Disney owns the Crusades now. So just go back and take care of that.
Kingdom Hearts 4 just should be a journey through Disney's like IP ownership. You know, just like, oh, we're in the ESPN world.
Yeah, the equivalent of everybody's favorite film, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Just like showing the breadth of like, look how we own everything. Disney needs some place to really focus that message home, and I feel like Kingdom Hearts 4 is perfect.
FX on Hulu world.
Ricky Winterborn writes in and asks, hey, would Jacob Geller and Leo Vader ever collaborate on a video essay? Is that weird? Whose channel would post it?
I'm miming a lot of stinky stuff.
Leo has been pretending he smelled something bad for the past 30 seconds.
Jacob did one line in my last video.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that not enough for you, Jackals?
It's like frequently video essay people will get other people to just like read lines because that's kind of fun. But like, it is that hard thing of like a video for either of us is like a month's work, you know? And so it's like, do you charge, would you charge both Patreon accounts for it? Like the idea of like what a collaboration would actually mean, I think is kind of hard to work out.
Yeah.
Because like the way we get money is so unorthodox. So I don't know. It's tough.
Plus, I don't think you two would work well together. There'd really be a lot of screaming and throwing vases at the wall over Zoom.
Yeah.
We're two auteurs. You know how that goes.
Sarah, have you ever
I feel like realistically, I someday will like think of a character that I want to have for a few minutes, be like, oh, Jacob would be good for that. And then I'd reach out to you.
Yeah, that seems beautiful. Yeah. By the way, Leo, did you watch Zathura yet, or the trailer for Zathura?
No, but I trust you completely. I feel like I have seen the trailer for that as a kid.
Okay. You should be.
I've literally wrote that down, though. It'd be funny to have that as a joke at some point.
Yeah, the reference is like
my character being pissed off at Zathura.
Because it's just a house floating through space. It's if you go back and watch the trailer for Zathura, if you don't remember, it's the sci-fi themed Jumanji.
Oh no, I remember the movie.
Okay, well it's an unforgettable journey. But yeah, just so much of that trailer and I guess the overall movie is just like a house floating through space. And I watched the trailer because I have a sad, shallow life not too long ago. And I was like, oh, this is just Leo's entire premise for his channel. It's accidental Zathura fanfic, but it's great.
Yeah, my channel is kind of like a YouTube Jumanji.
Sarah, have you ever been tempted by the video essay format?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
It's a lot of work.
It is. No.
Do you like writing?
Just like word vomiting on my Twitch channel.
Yeah, honestly.
There's nuggets of wisdom in there, but you just got to dig deep.
Right. Make a clip of it. There's your freaking essay.
Scripting it out. It's unfortunately my train of thought. Nothing edited out.
Let's see. Tactical Dreamer writes in and says, what's a song that still pops up in your head from your youth and you wish it would stop? Also, the unnoticed greatest game of all time is Celeste or Amori, Tactical Dreamer says. Yeah. Ooh, Amori. I keep forgetting about that. And by the way, just to help fuel this, Ryan McGinnis replied to that comment on Patreon And he said, if U2's Beautiful Day would stop running through my head every time it's a nice day outside, I would be eternally grateful.
That's a rough one.
Yeah, to be fair, I think I still like that song. Every time I hear it, I do get uncomfortably excited. Is the only way I can describe it.
Nothing, no shade against the song. I just can visualize that life that person is leading, and that seems rough.
It's a nightmare. I don't know. Yeah, songs from your youth that won't go away.
For me, it's a lot of Christian hymns that I haven't heard since I was a kid, but still remember quite clearly.
What's your favorite
Interesting.
hymn?
Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with power and love. Our God is an awesome God. That one pops into my head so often. And, it's a good beat. You can stomp, clap to it.
I think that really works because I didn't even go to church as a kid, and still that song is baked into my skull just from cultural osmosis or whatever,
Yeah.
By the way, I think we should start calling them hers instead of hymns. Am I right, everybody?
Yes.
Thank you.
There are some phrases that I find myself just unable to say without, like, if they are similar to a lyric from a song, then, like, this doesn't seem like it would crop up that much, but the song Starships by Nicki Minaj has just that little part where she's like, let's go to the beach,
and let's go get away. Say what they gonna say.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I cannot say it's like sometimes you just need to say the phrase, let's go to the beach. And I can't say that normally.
That's perfect. I love it. Let's see. L2 Larson writes in and says, hey, what's up, nerds? I don't know. Just recording a podcast, L2. I've recently been reading the Witcher books and I've really loved them. Got me curious as to why we don't get more book adaptations in video games. Do y'all have a book or series you'd like to see adapted into games? Yeah. It's called the Animorphs. And
Oh,
the
no.
greatest
That's the
ragtag
right
known
answer.
to man. And I really feel like they could do a lot of damage in an open world environment. Make an open world RPG that's Animorphs themed. Psh,
There was an
Hell yeah.
Animorphs game, but I think it was bad.
there's two. So there's one for the Game Boy Color, which is a Pokemon clone, which I streamed a while ago, and it is truly horrific. It is unbelievable. And then there's another one called Animorphs Shattered Reality for the PlayStation 1 that's a platformer, which is like the last thing that you want, I think, from Animorphs.
There's also the Druid class in Diablo.
That's right. That's a great point. Leo, would you pick your precious Jim the Dragon Boy or whatever the hell book series you were talking about recently with me?
I thought about that. Pendragon would not make for a good game, I don't think.
I love Pendragon.
For real?
Yeah, I can't believe that I haven't heard you mention this before.
That's amazing.
I own
We
like
need to have a
all
long
of the
bit about
books which are at my parents' house. Like, in
Have
a
you read
chest.
them?
Oh yeah. No, I the whole series.
I didn't finish the last 3 until recently. I reread the whole thing. Let's do a spoiled on that.
Oh, that sounds great. Honestly, whatever
with
you want.
Saint Dane.
Yes.
Now, the thing, Sarah, do you know Pendragon?
No.
Here's the most
I do
disappointing
not.
thing you could ever learn about it. It's a children's series of books, or for all ages, really, but does not involve dragons in any way. It's just this dweeb's last name is Pendragon.
But it's not about dragons.
No!
Like at all.
No, it's misleading as hell.
When I
Harry
was a
Potter
kid,
doesn't
I
make any
would,
pots.
Yeah,
I would
I'm
just
upset
think
about it.
about how cool it would be if I could change my name to Pendragon. Like, I was like, I think I would do it. I would be Jacob Pendragon.
How old were you when you decided that?
Oh, like 19. No, I don't know, like 12.
They should let kids get tattoos, because think of how many stupid tattoos would
How
be
did
around.
we move from like kids getting to change their names to kids should get tattoos?
Because I just like the idea of like being saddled with just your worst impulse as a kid. Like, can you imagine if you got to pick your tattoo when you were like 8? It's like, well, now I'm stuck with this box of crayons on my back or whatever the hell.
Mine would be
With this
Sailor
Family
Moon,
Guy.
and it would still be cool.
Yeah, you're right.
But it would like stretch out horribly as you grew. Like,
yeah, it's just oh yeah.
For books, has anybody been reading the Scholomance series? It's coming out still. The 3rd book comes out this year. First book's called A Deadly Education. It's about wizard school, but basically it's hyper violent. Like, it's really dangerous to go to this wizard school.
Okay.
It really retroactively makes Harry Potter less interesting to me, because it's like wow, this is a really well thought out magic world as far as like mana and evil mana balancing each other out. I could go on for a long time about just trying to lay out the story, but in short, you'd be going to a school where you're getting attacked a lot by these evil monsters and killing them in like different ways every time, like so many different unique spells in those books. I think it'd be interesting to try and make a game out of it.
Scalamance?
The Scalamance trilogy. The first book's called A Deadly Education. I don't know if it's trilogy for sure, actually.
Do you think we would have enjoyed school more if bullies were just like dragons and goblins and stuff? Is that what these books are telling us?
Yeah, because then you could fight them, and it's not morally questionable.
Oh, I see. That does work. That checks out. Chris Logan writes in and says, "Hey, Ben and the Horts, congratulations on your new teleportation machine." Thank you so much, Chris. Obviously, we're installing one pod in your home, but where would you like the other pod installed? You can teleport between the two pods as much as you want, but they can never be moved once they're installed.
Can other people use them?
Can I monetize it?
Look, there's no fine print here. I think it's game on. Yeah, monetize away. What would you do?
I'd probably have to move back to Los Angeles because I don't think, I think that's... I'd put a pod in Los Angeles and then I'd put a pod in Tokyo and I would like make people pay me to go to Tokyo, and it would be a lot of money.
Do you think that'd be more profitable than pod in New York City going to Disneyland?
Yes, I do think it would be more profitable.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because that like shipping companies and stuff would want to use it. They'd like go in the pod and bring, I don't know, raw metals with them, whatever those people would do. I don't know.
Well, I was thinking if it's limited to being at our house, you still could do the Tokyo thing and that'd be a good idea. But I initially thought just put it somewhere where it's kind of unclear what it is or where it goes, but it's in like a wealthier district of New York or whatever. And then people come in it and they come out on your side and they fall in a pit and then you charge them to get out and go back to where they came from.
Interesting.
So you trap like rich New Yorkers somewhere in Minnesota and then you charge them to get back to New York.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay.
I assume that when anyone who kind of works on Wall Street falls in a pit, just like Sonic, just like cash shoots out of them when they get injured. So it's like then you just pick all that up.
Yep. I think that's what you do. Yeah. Dig a big hole in Minnesota and then go for Wall Street. Just do the worst people on Wall Street enter Wall Street every day? Let's assume they walk in with a big briefcase full of cash, and that's the way that works. Dennis the Door Slammer. Thank you for being here, Dennis. They say, hey, missed joke opportunity from last week's show. The Skywalker Saga's out now on PC, as well as the Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and Dagobah systems. Hey, Dennis. That's what we like to hear. We love those missed jokes. Also, Dennis says, P.S. This is a reference to our Elden Ring discussion that we had in the studio a while ago with my friends Ronnie and Grant. He says, P.S. Nobody in my theater laughed at Sonic's "Return to Sender" line, Ben, but your hatred of it made me smile. Thank you.
Nobody laughed at that?
Yeah, this is the thing. I was lamenting about the fact that was like front and center in the first trailer, and it's just like the biggest zero of a joke I've ever heard in my life is Sonic saying "Return to Sender" and throwing a missile. And my argument was no one's going to react in any way in a theater. So thank you, Dennis, for confirming that. I'm sure it's a funny movie and a good movie, but that joke was crickets. That makes me feel good.
I relate to that as a somebody who tries to write jokes, with a lot of like clearly punched up reshoot types of like added on little flavor to a scene. It's like a lot of those jokes you have to realize just aren't going to make a single person laugh. But
right.
Yet we have to have a joke here.
Leo, I'm totally with you. I went back because we're doing the deepest dive in Chrono Cross now, and somebody shared, I made like a 6-minute video recap of the entire story of Chrono Trigger back in 2020. I went back and watched that, and I was horrified by myself. I truly hated myself watching that because it's just filled with jokes that are in that exact camp of like, yeah, I know you thought this was technically a joke writing it, but who would ever laugh at this? Who would ever be amused by this 2 out of 10 barely clever thing that feels like a joke, but no one's smiling? It's not brightening anybody's day. Like I remember hearing a stand-up comedian one time talking about getting advice from an older stand-up comedian, and their advice after seeing their set was like, my question is, where would you laugh during your set? It's like, it's very true. That's very true. If there's not a good answer for that, maybe something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got here? What is this name? Mandy Acnamara. This isn't a clever thing. I think this is just somebody named Mandy Acnamara writes in and they say, you wake up in the world of Elden Ring. Did you hear about this? How do you spend your time? Do you care that you're maidenless? Do you lounge all day making meals out of giant crabs? Do you try to complete missions or you just start squatting at the artist shack and make a nice life for yourself? Personally, I'm staying away from the creepy hand monsters and making my life's goal to figure out why NPCs hold such a grudge. Get over it already. I hit you once. Great questions, Mandy. A lot of very important questions here. We're in the world of Elden Ring.
Yeah, so if we're in the world of Elden Ring, like, you can't die because being reborn is like canonical. You know, it's like there's not like a game over. Like, it's in the game's lore that if you die, you come back to a site of grace. So like, usually with game stuff, I'm like, well, I would just stay in the very beginning of the first level because I don't want to die. But here, you've got a little more leniency.
But it would still hurt. Just because you come back after dying,
Well,
doesn't
you'd
mean
have
that
to
you'll
you'd have
love
to
it.
die, fast.
You know those like
don't know.
random dilapidated shacks you stumble upon in Elden Ring?
Yeah,
And you go in and there's like a dead body.
right.
I think that would be me.
Just the body.
Just the body. I don't think I would survive 5 minutes in Elden Ring.
So is your theory that those NPCs just went to go to try and survive in the world, but like, I'll just stay in this shack, and then eventually they
Yeah.
just died?
And then they just died because there's monsters literally everywhere.
Or just
That would be me.
a starvation of boredom.
Realistically,
Yeah.
you'd probably pull like an amulet off my body. It's not even going to be a good one. Yeah, it would
It'd
be.
be like, oh, can't use this. I need,
Yeah, it's probably like the cat
19
amulet.
more
for-
faith.
You'd literally find me in a ravine with the jumping amulet that doesn't actually, negate that much fall damage.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking of like, if you can make it to the capital, I feel like there's a nice abandoned building that you could probably claim that doesn't have, it might be tough, but you can get around like those snowmen blowing trumpets. They won't
I
be
would
too
join them. If they're hiring, I would join them. I would gladly be one with the dude horn men.
Or just, go to the round table hold. Like, they got a fire. They're like,
I don't know, man. Down
talk to
there
Dung
way
Eater.
too much. I don't want to
Yeah.
hang out around people with weapons.
Yeah, I don't think that's just because there's books there to read or something. But like, have you seen some of
Because
those
no one's
rooms?
fighting each other. It's peaceful.
Yeah,
I got attacked there once, and I didn't appreciate it.
interesting. Yeah, it's peaceful, but there's also a room with a giant 2-finger monster thing. Like, I wouldn't want to be in the same building as that monstrosity. It's gonna come attack you, man.
I would spend the
chill.
first like 2 days just covering the floor in messages around the whole starting area. All the memeiest, find the funniest stuff to write that's going to get the most upvotes.
Yeah.
Or
Before
just do what
start
Kyle
thinking about
does and
going
just
anywhere.
copy what another popular message.
Right.
Just put it down next to it.
Yeah, Kyle
Because
told
then
me
you'd be healed constantly, right? Is that the
Exactly.
theory?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and you do have to assume, I've always felt like in Elden Ring or Dark Souls or anything, when you're like drinking that flask, it's got to taste real good. I think it's like, it's like mango nectar or something.
No.
Like, I feel like it's a real good
I
feeling.
hope it tastes like Sunny D.
But no, knowing the world,
Pre-stun.
yeah,
Short
there's
for
no
tonic
way that it
pre-stun.
tastes good. I'm guessing it tastes just like sand that somebody pissed in. That feels about
Or like,
right.
like Soylent. Tastes like Soylent. Or something.
Yes,
Just chalk.
exactly. Muffin Crumbs writes in and says, "Hey, can someone explain to me why Dream still hasn't come to PC?" Muffin, we can't, and we wish that we could
Can't
explain,
explain
that too.
but I understand.
I mean, there's all those stories about with God of War when the PlayStation ported that to PC. They're like, oh, it took. I mean, they gave some absurd amount of like, it took 5 years of effort or something. I guess it doesn't check out, but it was like years and years in development to get that thing up and running. And I know that's I wouldn't say more complex game, but like Dreams, it seems so finicky and there's so much custom work that I have to do, especially with mouse support, that I have utmost confidence that it's happening. But at the same time, I think it's probably going to take a lot longer than we think.
I think there's more legal questions than like I think Sony just doesn't want to put something out that people could like use to monetize their own content basically. It's like on PC, Dreams is unleashed in the way that we all want, but like
Yeah.
I think it kind of becomes uncontrollable in a way that if you're a video game publisher is kind of scary.
I mean, I don't think so. I think, for Game Informer, I visited that studio for a couple days, and definitely Media Molecule wants it on PC. Like, the developers are like, clearly this is the right place for it. And there's a lot of talk about like, this could be a real kind of golden ticket for the studio, because if you release it and then you just get a cut of every game that's made with it, as if it's like the Unreal Engine, right? If they get 30%, they get 20%, whatever that is, and people can release standalone games on Steam that are made within Dreams, I feel like Sony would be much more excited about that idea. And obviously there's legal complications and stuff that comes with it. But if they're getting a cut of every standalone game that could be split out and released on it, I feel like that would be worth their while, because you never know what type of cool stuff could be popular and big on Steam that's blowing up from Dreams. So who knows?
It's been so long already.
I mean, yeah, 2020 is when it came out officially, so a couple years seems doable. I bet we'll hear about it within a year. I don't know anything, but
I hope so.
yeah. Let's see. Oh, Michael Barry writes in and says, hey, after listening for a while, this is just one of those like nice messages. Sarah, can we read this?
Yeah. You have permission.
Thank you. After listening for a while, I decided to pay my share by finally supporting y'all on Patreon after your magnificent crew expanded. All great additions. Oh, thank you. I watched your Jackbox shenanigans and loved watching Jacob sabotaging Ben in Push the Button. Thank you, Jacob. Ben, you did not do yourself any favors by acting so guilty. Anyways, I want to suggest Super Hot VR for one of the greatest games ever. Yep, I think that's a great choice. P.S. Sarah, will you allow a compliment?
Is it for me personally?
It is for you personally.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. P.S. Ben, you are a funny guy. And Sarah, you are a ray of sunshine. I
don't know about that, but I'll take it.
Has anybody ever called you that in your life?
Not for a very, very long time.
Okay. Yeah, we all had days in the sun, but it's been a long time. Kenneth Evans writes in and says, hey, everybody, you have to choose. Will these studios make this game or a new IP? So you have to choose what you want to see. Do we want to see Hades 2 or Supergiant make a new IP?
New IP.
New IP.
100%.
Yeah.
They keep doing a good job when they do new IP.
Yeah, don't derail that. And Hades is still there. I don't know if I want more from that formula. That's about everything I want. Do you want Returnal 2, Jacob Geller, or do you want a new IP from Housemarque?
Still new IP. I think.
All right.
Like I think that Housemarque's gameplay is like, it's like I don't think they're gonna mess that up, and so it's like, yeah, just give me a different story.
Yeah, Leo, do you want Naughty Dog to make The Last of Us Part 3 or a new IP?
New IP for sure.
I feel like it's always going to be new IP.
I think. Okay, but what about this, Sarah? Elden Ring 2.
Tough one.
Elden Ring 2 or a new IP?
New IP.
Yeah, correct.
That's how we got Elden Ring.
That's right. Sorry, Kenneth.
It's always going to be new IP. And we're always going to get insert game title 2 instead.
Yep. Austin Nicholson writes in and says, hey, cohorts, last week on Kind of Funny Games Daily. Okay, I hope everyone's sitting down. If you're listening to this, and I know you are, seriously, sit down. Sit down right now. But last week on Kind of Funny Games Daily, Blessing talked about how he prefers making his waffles in the microwave instead of putting them in the toaster.
Wait, is this like frozen waffles, like Eggo waffles?
I think it must be.
I take issue with the word make. But
Is there any food that you make/prepare beyond the normal/correct way? Asks Austin. All right, my fiance thinks I'm insane for this, but I don't know how else to do it. So I make oatmeal every morning because I'm a big, cool, strong guy. And but the thing is, you make it in the microwave, and I put it in the microwave for 4 minutes. But then by the time it comes out, it's 1,000 degrees. And so then I take the hot microwave, or the hot, microwaved oatmeal, and I put it in the freezer. And I let it sit in the freezer for a while until like the outside is cool, but then the inside is still perfectly the right warm temperature. And it makes it so much more dynamic and interesting, unless I forget about it too long, and then it's just a big frozen block of oatmeal that I just lick on throughout the day.
That is so weird.
Well,
you don't just heat it up less?
No,
you could
Does it have to be 4 minutes?
I think so, because then it's not as cooked. If I just do like 2 or 3 minutes, then doesn't feel like it's doing the thing.
What I do if I'm microwaving oatmeal is like, then you put milk like cold milk into it after it's microwaved, and then you mix it in, and that kind of regulates the temperature.
Yeah, I don't have cold milk. I used to do like an ice cube and I'd mix that around, but
It's weirder.
I like instant ramen, like dry, not as in uncooked, but like I sometimes you can do like the ramen broth, but for instant ramen, sometimes I just kind of do it like spaghetti, where I like drain the water out of it.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go the other way. I will absolutely just cromp down on some raw ramen, just rip it out of that package and just treat it like a snack.
I was trying to be weird, but you're so much weirder on every level.
Does no one else?
I like the weirdest thing is that I don't like to toast my Pop-Tarts. I just like them out of the package. Like that's all I have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're too normal.
My
Apparently.
lovely partner Marie puts milk in the bowl and then cereal.
Nope.
So
That's too risky.
she can keep adding cereal, and it keeps being fresher. Finish the cereal. There's still milk left. Add a little more cereal. Which was crazy to me at first, but yeah, I see the appeal, but I still not enough for me to do it.
Yeah, it's smarter. But
sometimes I have a slice of toast, peanut butter, egg on top of that.
Well, that's just weird.
That's just plain weird.
Stuff. Do you think like if every cereal commercial they showed at the end of it throughout our youth, they showed pouring cereal that way instead of the other way? Do you think we'd all just unconsciously do it? Milk first?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Those cereal commercials convinced us that that's a real breakfast. Like they could tell us anything.
Kauki's in the morning. Gabriel Cleveland writes in and says, "Hey there, Benihanas. Hello. I'm super excited for PAX East next week, in no small part because I'm going to be a gym leader for the PAX Pokemon League ARG. I didn't know this existed. This sounds great. Has anybody else ever heard of this?
Oh.
I look forward to taking all challengers and handing out badges to the worthy. My question is simple. If you were a gym leader in the Pokemon world, what would your type and or theme be?" And then Gabriel says, "If you like and pick this question, you don't have to read this part, but for reference," of course we're going to read it, Gabriel, "I'm a hatter who fled into the forest after being driven mad by mercury poisoning and was saved by the Pokemon inhabitants of the woods. And as such, my team is fairy poison / any Pokemon with hats." That is a very good theme. I like if you just focus on this is just the hat gym. Any Pokemon that has a hat.
I'm trying to think of all the Pokemon with hats.
I'm really trying to think too.
There's the one that's just hats. She just has a hat. She's like the new Gardevoir, but she has a hat from Sword and Shield.
Yeah. Does the British Weezing have the hat?
Yeah. I would count that as a hat.
Okay.
There's that like little clown thing. Is it related to Mr. like Mime Jr.? Does Mime Jr. have a hat?
I don't know. Or Mr. Rhyme, does he have a hat? It's really just a lot of the British variations I feel like are going to be monsters. Mr. Rhyme is, you know what? I regret even Googling that. I don't like looking in his eyes, but it's unclear if that's a hat. Yeah, I don't know. I like Psychic and I like Plant and I like Ghost. So I'd probably go ghosty Plant.
Haunted plants.
Haunted plants, yeah, would be the theme, I think. What about you, Sarah?
I once tried to put together a team of Pokemon, like the smallest Pokemon.
Ooh, that's good.
So it was like literally like tiny. So it was like Cottony, Castform. I don't remember what the other ones were, but they were all like incredibly small.
Yeah.
And I think that would be my team.
I love it. That's really good. So like people go in there to battle you, they can't even barely see
They'd
what
be
you're
like,
going
"What
up
is
against.
that?" And I'd be like, "You'll never see it coming because it's too small." And then I can say things like, "We may be small, but we pack a big punch." And then I do my pose.
Bo Bakken writes in and says, "My memory."
I want to say real quick, I would do all
Leo.
the humanoid Pokemon like Mr. Mime, and our thing would be we'd be sitting around in a circle ripping a binger like that 70s show.
Hell yeah. Diddle. Bo Bakken writes in and says, "My memory may be fuzzy, but weren't we all essentially playing Wordle years ago in Fallout 3 during those Vault terminal hacking puzzles?"
Yeah.
Also, the greatest unspoken game of all time is Dark Cloud. Okay, thank you, Bo. That's probably correct. Was it Wordle to do the Vault hacking? I don't remember how this looked in Fallout 3.
I remember
Picking from words. You weren't typing.
I remember the Fallout 3 hacking game in that, like, I literally never understood how to do it. Like, I beat the entire game and I never I would just like pick 4 things at random and then be like, you didn't pass the hacking minigame, and that would be it.
I totally get it. I get that feeling for sure.
It was wordly though. It was like, yeah, you pick one and it says 2 of those letters were right, but you don't know whether they were in the right spot. I think.
God, I know
It might have even
Bethesda's
been more specific than that.
I know Bethesda's
But I think it was
probably
only like
busy.
difficulty gated certain terminals you could use, and then how long the word would be. How many
Okay.
letters.
I mean, now that they're under the Microsoft umbrella, you think Microsoft would have jumped on that in some way, try and cash in, and like, hey, here's a new mobile Fallout game that's Wordle inspired. You could do something cool with that aesthetic, you know?
You could, but people dump on that hacking minigame. You know?
Oh, okay.
I don't want to
never
get
mind
made
that.
fun of, even though I liked it.
Yeah, don't make fun of Microsoft, everybody.
They're doing their best.
I forget who it was. There was some GDC presentation where somebody talking about like pitching your prototypes, and he was showing a bunch of early prototypes that he made, and he showed this prototype from like 2012 that he never did anything with, and it was Wordle. It was just like fully Wordle, and he made it, and I was like, whatever, and then just kind of moved on. It's like, sad times. Garrett Waynestock writes in and says, hey, what is the best thing you've jumped off of in games? It's a great question.
Tall Neck in Horizon.
Yeah. I was thinking even like the Last Colossus. He's a big one. I don't know about jumping.
Well, you
as much as
don't
falling.
jump off.
Yeah, you don't jump off. Sarah?
It's probably a sky whale. Probably some form of a sky whale.
Okay. Any game in particular?
I'm pretty sure Skyward Sword is a sky whale.
Did it?
Yeah. Did it not? Didn't you go to that one section in the sky and there's just like this is why I don't know. There's this giant fucking whale in the sky.
Huh, yeah. Oh, Levius, also known as the Great Spirit Levius. Oh, yeah, I remember it by the Great Spirit Levius. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry they don't know what a sky whale.
No,
It's a more common nickname.
I don't remember that thing at all. That's sad. Yeah,
A
more games.
helicopter in Saints Row the Third. To that Kanye West song. Remember you jump out the helicopter, go to
That's
the party?
right.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
right. That's
so
fun.
good.
Adrian Creates says, hey, in the past year, I've transitioned to PC as my preferred platform for gaming. One thing that I love about gaming through Steam is the wish list sale notifications. It makes me wonder, why doesn't PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo have this on their consoles? Kind of feels like they want to offer discounts, but don't actually want people to save money. Do you think this would help or hurt overall revenue? I think it would help, right?
If there's one thing I've learned from Steam wishlist sale notifications, it's that I didn't actually want that game at all.
Right.
And now I know, I'll just remove it from the wish list if I'm not even going to get it when it's on sale.
I mean, Leafeon watching us live at the Backstage Pass here, they say, hey, PlayStation does have this. I got a bunch of notifications today. I'll be damned. Wait, I mean, Leafeon says Nintendo emails those notifications as well. Well, maybe they do have them. I don't know.
I feel like the bigger thing is I wish like the store was as easily searchable as Steam is, like especially the Nintendo eShop. It's like even if I wanted to find a game and I knew it by name, if it's not on the front page, it's going to take at least 5 minutes
Also,
for me to find it.
I don't know what to do about it, who to complain to about it, but just that eShop UI is so slow. I mean, really, almost every console store page, the UI is just unbearably slow, but especially the eShop these days. And just think back to like the first time we saw that UI in a video or something, or even like the PlayStation 4 UI and everything's so snappy and beautiful. And then just years into the console's life, it just barely is scraping by.
I mean, it took me probably fully 15 minutes to find the Stranger of Paradise demo on PS5.
Oh,
like just
really?
trying to figure out like how to, and it's like you would search like Final Fantasy and Stranger of Paradise wouldn't pop up at all, and then the Stranger of Paradise store page doesn't have a link to the demo, and it's like it's so poorly organized. I mean, it's like Steam is weird because like I feel like it's kind of it's incredibly like old and looks clunky, and a lot of the UI elements don't match each other, but like it works in a way that seemingly none of the other storefronts do.
Yeah, it's true. Mouse and keyboard helps. Dylan Kuzel writes and says, hello, MinnMaxers. I've been thinking about brand loyalty and how our opinions of games that feature our favorite characters may be skewed because we're already familiar with those characters and their worlds. Hypothetically, if Miyamoto made a new game with a brand new IP, but never revealed that he had anything to do with it, do you think the game would receive as much praise as his others? Interesting.
Not as much.
Yes.
Wait, you think so, Jacob Geller?
Yeah, I think that most people don't care about game developers.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's like, I think that most people have no idea who works on most games.
But Miyamoto, I don't know, I think he's an interesting case for this. I mean, because he was he the official director of Wii Music? He was such a big part of Wii Music. And it's not like every game that Miyamoto touches, everybody loves. Like, there's plenty of examples of him championing a game that's like, maybe not so much. But I'm trying to think of, like, you know, Kojima, if they pulled the kind of J.K. Rowling move of releasing a game without their name on it. Like, what was J.K. Rowling's book? The Big Apartment or something?
The thing where J.K. Rowling weirdly pretended to be a man?
Oh, interesting.
You know, that?
Yeah, it was. But there's that whole saga. And, like, the weird thing is, like, that book, I think, was, like, well reviewed. And it was like, kind of a cool test. So, like, oh, okay.
I think, if I remember that right, we actually all knew that it was her book before it came out. Like, the pseudonym got blown.
God, I don't know. I don't know my history that well. But
I will say, Miyamoto worked as a producer on Hamtaro Ham Ham Heartbreak. And I cannot convince anyone to play Hamtaro Ham Ham Heartbreak, even when I tell them that Miyamoto worked as a producer on it, and it's really good.
Right. But Sarah, do you remember the meeting we had on Monday where I said that I really wanted to...
Yeah, I tried it on Monday, and it didn't work.
No, I want to stream that game. I want to stream the Hamtaro games.
You don't want to stream Ham Ham Heartbreak. He didn't work on all the Hamtaro games.
Oh, I want to play the Alpha Dream games. Maybe if I really enjoy it and I understand Hamtaro in a new way, then I can go back to Ham Ham Heartbreak just for the name alone.
I feel like what's always the kind of lesson when,
Jacob,
like, famous
please,
authors...
we're talking about Hamtaro here, dude.
I'm sorry.
And we're done now. Okay, go
Finish your
on.
thought.
That's it.
Whenever authors do, like, pen names or whatever, it's always like, well, actually, the author doesn't matter. It's having access to major publishing, like, resources that matters. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if From published a game that Miyazaki didn't work on or whatever, but, like, it still had all the From stuff.
Dark Souls 2 in some ways, right?
Yeah, which, I mean, it's like people have conflicted feelings about, but it's like that game did very well and sold 1 billion copies.
Right,
like, it's, you know, it's people's least favorite Dark Souls game, but, like, it's still sold on the Dark Souls name a huge amount.
Yeah. I think an interesting test of this was the reveal of PT. Because remember, it was in that Sony live stream where it's like, hey, here's some horror game. We're showing you clips, walking down a hallway. And it was the most forgettable thing. It just felt like the most average state of play, fine presentation. Moving on to the next game, you know? And obviously there's a lot of great details in PT that they couldn't convey through that trailer, but I think of that. And then when people realized, oh my God, this is Silent Hills, this is Kojima's next game with Del Toro, then suddenly it's like, suddenly it's brilliant. But, like, at first glance anyway, there seemed to be nothing remarkable about PT from that live stream. Matthew Sheldon. Okay, here we go, everybody. I don't know if you saw this, Sarah. I'm sorry to tell you and break it to you this way, but Gaming Confessions didn't win for New Show Plus this week. It was...
Shocked. Absolutely shocked.
I am shocked, too. I really thought it was going to go the distance.
I was surprised. But I'm glad Joe got his fireworks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of Joe. But people still are submitting a bunch of gaming confessions here for the podcast, so it lives on in some weird way. Matthew Sheldon writes in and says, a friend and I would steal items in Asheron's Call, the old MMO, because trade requests did not exist. We stole items from dozens of people by ambushing them after they dropped their half of the trade on the ground and then run away. And they did this for years, apparently. You love it. Do they need to be absolved of their gaming sins, or is this just cool gamer stuff?
No, that enriches the world for everyone. That you can actually get robbed like that.
It's so realistic.
Yeah.
I know that whenever I pay for my coffee, I just drop the cash on the ground and the barista has to dive for it.
Yeah.
Before somebody else gets it.
Right.
Absolutely. Nate Dogg writes in and says, hey, everybody, I'm not sure if we're still doing gaming sins. Sure. But I need absolution. I purposely reset my Xbox seconds away from the end of a Halo 2 split screen deathmatch with my then girlfriend. She was winning at the time, and it was the only time she ever beat me. And according to the game, my undefeated record endured. Well, at the time, I thought my actions were cheeky and funny. She did not, and she would bring up the incident several times in subsequent months. By the way, the secret greatest game of all time is SimAnt. That is correct. We ran the numbers. It actually is SimAnt. It's always been SimAnt. Yeah, this one seems bad.
Sin. Yeah, hardcore sin.
I don't know about hardcore sin, but in poor taste for the one time that she was beating you. Well, I hope that relationship went well. Slycut writes in and says, you're once again called upon to cast judgment. When I was around 9 or 10, all right, this one has layers. It's complex. When I was around 9 or 10, I was way into Punch-Out on NES. It was my mission to beat the game, and it was all I wanted to play. However, my brother, who was around 4 or 5, wanted to play games with me. Punch-Out is single player. What was I to do? So I plugged in the second controller, handed it to him, told him he was controlling Little Mac, and I was the other guys. Of course, I was Little Mac, beating every boxer and hamming it up at how badly he was beating me. He was having the time of his life beating his big brother. We did this many times. But at the time, I couldn't beat Mr. Sandman, and my brother always said that he didn't like it when I was that guy because I always won. This came up in conversation close to 10 years later. I could see the embarrassment and hurt in his eyes when he realized the truth, since he apparently hadn't figured it out as I had assumed. I think I destroyed a special memory for him. I apologize, but still feel a little bad today, despite this revelation taking place around 15 years ago. I await your judgment.
I mean, this is like, I think, an incredibly nice move on the part of the confessor that, like, comes back to be embarrassing in an understanding way, but, like, you know, that's like the nicest thing you could do for playing games with your brother. It's like, not only, like, I was thinking it would just be like, oh, I don't know, you're controlling the other guy. But, like, he made him feel like he was winning. Like, that's so nice.
But then, well, until they got to Sandman. And then he would just beat the crap out of him every time.
What are you supposed to do?
With no mercy.
Mr. Sandman is hard.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's overall fine. I think you're doing fine, Slyka.
The memory was positive. Yeah. And I don't think it's embarrassing as, like, a 4-year-old to be like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, when are you supposed to tell them?
So, yeah, you're fine, Slycut. You're fine. Yeah. Purely absolved.
My friend gave his 4-year-old brother the controller for Super Smash Bros. And it wasn't plugged in.
I think that's also fine.
I think it's messed up. I still feel guilty for being an accomplice. What? You let him play, we'll kick his ass.
Right.
4 years old. It's a power move, you know?
Well, what are you supposed to do?
In this case.
What are you supposed to do?
Let him play.
Well, I guess there's that.
Let the 4-year-old play.
It is true. Like, the game does have the handicap option in there, and it is very handy. All right, what do y'all like for a question of the week?
Pokemon gym.
Pokemon gyms.
I didn't have an answer to that because I don't know anything about Pokemon, but I enjoyed hearing everyone else's.
I like the world of Elden Ring. I like the song that pops in your head. I like the Disney worlds. I like the food, the funky food prep.
I like the Elden Ring one.
Yeah.
And also the Pokemon one.
I like Pokemon. I like learning about that PAX LARPing thing. Leo, which way are you leaning?
Pokemon one.
Wow. All right, there we go. Hats off to, of course, Gabriel Cleveland. You won the big prize from I Am 8-Bit. They'll ship out your copy of Manifold Garden on the Nintendo Switch. Now it's time for something that we call Get a Load of This. For Get a Load of This, you got one, Sarah?
Get a load of this. Final Fantasy XIV has added new PvP that is essentially a payload mode. It is a 5v5 where your goal is to move, of course, like a crystal. It's a crystal. This is Final Fantasy.
Crystals are back.
Your goal is to move a crystal into your opponent's goal. And there's also ranked, so it's like bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, crystal. So I can be just as toxic as I was in League of Legends, but now in my Final Fantasy XIV.
That's beautiful. Did you see IGN had an article, and it was all about Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, talking about how much he loves 14? Did you see this?
I did not see that.
It was really heartwarming, where it's just talking about him, and he's just playing it like every morning. And he just is delighted by seeing all these references to stuff that he worked on, 30 years ago. But it's like, oh, look, it's the twins from Final Fantasy IV. Like all that fan service. Imagine how bizarre that would be if it was for something that you created, but then haven't really worked on for decades at this point. Like, what a weird nostalgia trip for him. So it turns out 14 is a good game, Sarah.
Yeah, and the 6.1 patch went live. It fixed a lot of stuff in A Realm Reborn. So now is probably the easiest time to get into Final Fantasy XIV. If you'd like.
There it is. Hey, get a load of this. I assume you all saw the hot story about how Gearbox's Randy Pitchford has purchased the Magic Castle in LA, the famous magic venue.
What the hell, man? I saw it. What the hell?
He's using that Embracer Group money for a good cause, I guess, preserving magic history. But reading more about this and digging into it a little bit, I didn't realize, and I consider myself a connoisseur of Randy Pitchford, I didn't realize that his great uncle was a famous magician called the Great Cardini. And he was a magician. He came from Europe. We're talking olden days. And there's actually a clip of him of the one time he was on TV in 1957. So on YouTube, you can watch Randy Pitchford's great uncle, the Great Cardini, performing some truly stellar magic tricks, just waving big rounds of cards everywhere. It's fantastic. It's truly fantastic.
That's why it's called Cardini.
Oh, I get it now. Leo, what do you got, man?
Hey, get a load of this great video essay. It's from Verily Bitchy. It's called How Bisexuality Changed Video Games.
Huh.
It's an all-timer video essay for me. Really well researched with some really interesting insights onto like patterns I never noticed in romance options in games. It kind of starts with like the really fascinating origin of why there were gay relationships in The Sims 1. It originating as almost like a bug or something that got put in by accident, but then was received well enough for them to include it when it was like really controversial at the time.
Totally.
Even internally. And going up to like modern day RPGs where it seems like, yeah, you can be, gay or bisexual, but really there's like single digit exceptions to this, but really it's like there's always canon heterosexual things that happen. And then you can do optional stuff that make you bisexual on top of that, but like can really avoid the heterosexual stuff.
Huh.
Just really interesting, well thought out video. Some video essays are just long and some video essays are long and good. And this is the latter.
There you go. There's links below for all this fun stuff. The community has one thanks to Hioru. Submitted this over in Discord, but there's a Fanbyte article. And the article is how one Advance Wars fan accidentally played the remake early. And it's a convoluted story, but Nintendo pulled the launch of the Advance Wars remake because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but somehow through a series of like the code being given out, like there's one person named Rachel on Twitter who's like, somehow is able to use a code for Advance Wars, the reboot, and I've just been playing it. So she's been like documenting her time playing it. People are really doubting it, but it's like, no, somehow this just slipped through the servers and she's managed to activate this code just being a fan. So it's a fun story from Fanbase. So that link's below. Check it out. Jacob, do you share yours?
I didn't yet. I have two, but I'll be very quick because get a load of this. Sharing movies for get a load of this is boring, but there is a Bollywood movie in theaters right now called RRR. It's just triple R. That is the single most entertaining movie I have seen in a theater in a decade. I am seeing it tonight for the third time, which I haven't done with a movie in the theaters in years. It's 3 hours long and it is worth every second of it.
This is bold.
I cannot impress upon, like, the first time I saw it, I dragged a friend to it. We have both seen it subsequently and dragged more friends. And then those same friends are like, I need to show more people this. Do you want to go again? It's unbelievable.
That seems great. And just to be clear, it's not about the Red Ribbon Army from Dragon Ball. This is RRR or something else entirely. It is playing in Minnesota as well. See, I've seen like just clips of big Bollywood movies and I always think it looks really fun and entertaining, but
I am begging you to see this.
All right.
It is so good.
Is it, would my fiance who likes musicals and all that stuff, would she like it? Or is it like silly action?
There are two, like, there's an amazing musical number in the middle of it. It's probably mostly an action movie, but it's like a pretty silly action movie. And so I still think like my roommate who is like, wouldn't go to like John Wick or whatever certainly enjoyed this.
All right.
I took a long time with that one, so that's good.
I love it. I mean, Lee fans asking you in the live Backstage Pass chat if you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I also hear amazing things about.
Oh yeah, also great. And that I think will get the mainstream recognition it deserves. For what I don't know why this Bollywood movie like has a wide release in theaters currently. I feel like that's not a typical thing.
Yeah.
But like I am so glad that it does.
I love it. All right. Cool. Do you have another one?
Oh, sure. There's, I mean, I spent a long time talking about that, so I don't need to do the other one.
But now I need to hear it.
Yeah, we need to hear
The
it.
seed's been planted.
Oh, okay. So there's the hardest boss in Elden Ring. Is this lady named Millennia. Everyone kind of complains about her. Recently on the Elden Ring subreddit, there has been this phenomenon where multiple people are talking about a summon called Let Me Solo Her. Like, that's the name of his character, is Let Me Solo Her. And it's a naked guy with a pot on his head and 2 katanas. And you summon him in and then just stand in the corner, and he just fights her on his own and like finishes the fight. And so now people are like drawing fan art of Let Me Solo Her.
The hero we need
So
but
good.
don't deserve.
That's beautiful. Well, hey, thanks everybody for watching or listening and sharing MinnMax all around. We appreciate it. Patreon exclusive podcast party chat. This week we talked about Moon Knight, we talked about Kingdom Hearts 4, a bunch of other stuff. Thanks for unlocking that podcast in your favorite podcast app. Again, you don't have to listen to that in the browser. And if you support us at the $5 tier on Patreon, not only are you getting us that much closer to our goal, which we're like this close, like the size of one of Sarah's Pokemon. Like, that's how little of a distance we have to go before we hit our goal on Patreon. But if you support us on Patreon, you unlock the party chat. You also unlock the podcast version of The Deepest Dive on Chrono Cross, which we just kicked off. We're breaking that game up into 4 different sections. We had a very fun discussion about the opening of the game up through Viper Manor, but you can check that out on our YouTube channel. Any help sharing it's appreciated. And if you're a big Chrono Cross fan, you could always unlock the podcast version of it again by supporting us on Patreon. So we appreciate it. Also, heads up everybody, Trivia Tower is going to be a little bit later this month than normal. Normally it's in the middle of every month. Right now it's looking like we're going to have Trivia Tower on April 28th, and we'll have more details to come, but here's a little hint. It's going to be an all Nintendo round. So if you fancy yourself a Nintendo expert, or you just know a thing or two about Nintendo games, or you just want to help support us on Patreon at the $2 tier, and you feel like you can get lucky with 1 or 2 guesses about Nintendo games, jump in, compete in Trivia Tower. It'll be a fun time. I think you'll like the co-hosts and how this whole thing's going to go. Awesome. Jacob, anything you want to plug?
Just, visit my YouTube channel, Jacob Geller.
Sweet. Will do. We'll do that. Sarah, anything's going on with you?
I would like to plug the underrated Style Savvy games. Style Savvy Trendsetters, the best fashion games ever to be made.
Okay.
By Sin Sophia. I might be biased because I worked on the most recent one. But
Interesting.
they're really good.
Really? Wait, what did you do for the most recent one?
I worked on some of the early localization.
Really?
Yeah, but am not credited because then it went back to Nintendo of Europe.
Oh, well, that's complicated.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sad.
Leo, anything going on with you?
New video on youtube.com/LeoVader this Friday. It's about gaming a little bit, so gamers want to keep an eye out for that one.
There we go. That's what we like to hear.
I did its gaming a little bit.
We're getting there. Thanks everybody for supporting us, for listening to the show, watching the show. We appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who's jumped up to the game champion tier. I'm talking about Fred Dinovo, who officially has declared themselves the champion of Tetris Effect, and they say challengers welcome, because they will not be thrown off the top of that mountain. Also, Patrick Polk, thank you for supporting us at the $50 tier, the Game Champion tier. They chose as the Game 2 champion the official name for the Japanese Dreamcast release, which is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Cross for Matching Service. So great choice, Patrick. Fantastic work. The official Game Champion. Also thanks to Brett Hunter, who is the official Game Champion of Super Mario 64. Somebody had to claim it. It's the juggernaut. You got to go out there and do it. So thanks everybody for jumping up to that tier. We'll have news soon about where that's leading. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Be good, have fun. Let's go.